Welcome to another edition of Dead Alive. Also, welcome to another edition of Somerville Connects. Welcome, Mariya Shiyko.
Thank you.
Mariya, it's so wonderful to have you here. You are such a beautiful, radiant soul. And I met you here in Somerville a few months ago with Michael Curran from Cambridge. But now this show is all about you, and I want you to take us on a journey of your life. But I'm going to ask you 4 questions. And this was devised by Cynthia Greenawald from Sea Change Networking. It's called PACE. I'm going to ask you about your passions, your achievements, community, and your endeavors. So, Mariya, tell us about some of your passions in this big, wide world.
I'm passionate about human beauty. And I believe that we are joy, and that joy is why we're here walking on this planet, to connect with each other, to connect with ourselves, and to really see the best in ourselves and in each other. And if I were to make it very practical, I'm really passionate about translating educational system, so that educational system supports and promotes the best out of us.
Okay, and we'll go back to your educational, about your passions, about your educational system. Or better still, let's talk about it right now. What do you mean, your passion with the educational system? Is this something that you practice with you're a healer?
I am a healer.
Is this what, I know you said you work earlier at Northeastern University, but do you also do this within your business?
So I remember myself being 3 years old, and I was in my grandfather's summer house. It was a really tiny house, and I had neighboring kids in this little garage that my grandfather used to have. My grandfather since then passed away. And there was a big chalkboard. And so at that time, when I was 3 years old, I gathered neighborhood kids and I was teaching them math, and I was just teaching them something.
At the age of 3 years old?
I think I was 3. I was 3 or 5 years old, so I was always passionate about teaching.
You love the chalkboard.
I love teaching.
Okay.
I'm like, if you just gather, let's just do something.
Right.
I'm really passionate about teaching. So as far as I remember myself, whether I was 5 years old or now, even whether it's my business or my work or whatever it is that I do, I always am in the framework of education and teaching.
And I'm sure people love to be taught by you because there's something very charismatic about you. And I'm sure the people at home can see your eyes, you just draw people right in. It's amazing. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up here in America?
No, I was born and raised in Russia.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I only know one word, placebo, right?
Спасибо.
Oh, placebo. I'm killing the placebo. Oh my God, I'm thinking about, okay, placebo. Okay, so how long did you live in Russia?
I moved to the U.S. when I was 21.
And did you move with your family, or did you like just take off and say to your parents, hey, I'm leaving town?
I am leaving. I bought a ticket and I moved to the U.S.
You did it on your own?
I did it on my own.
And when you came to the U.S., were you like afraid, or you just said, well, people are kind of like fearless when they're young?
I think that it's good at that time that I didn't know some of the challenges that would come with the immigration process, because when you don't know, you have no fear and you just do it. So the less you know, the better.
Right. So where did you move? You moved from Russia to the Boston area?
To New York City.
Oh, oh my. So did you have culture shock when you moved to New York City?
I loved it. The main reason I moved to New York City is that I came here for an exchange program. And I remember myself walking in New York, and something that really struck me at that time, I had a sandwich in my hands, and I didn't know where to sit and have that piece of sandwich. And then there was this big green lawn, and I just sat there and had my sandwich. And it struck me back then that I could sit in the middle of this humongous city and wear shorts and sit on the grass, and nobody would bother me and would tell me that this is not good manners and that a woman should not do that.
Do they do that in Russia? Are you kidding me?
It is a very strict way in which you should be, in how you should behave. So a lot of the gender roles as well as expectations. And I think what really stayed with me at the time when I was 21, for the first time, I had the sense of freedom inside of myself, that I can be myself, I can be different, I can look different. At the time, I did not even speak the language well, and I still somehow can be okay. There was place for me on this planet just to be myself.
Wow. At 21 years old, coming into New York City, not speaking the language, and now you're totally free. You probably felt like a bird out of a cage.
To say the least.
So where did you live when you moved to New York City?
Brooklyn! Brooklyn!
Did you have anybody there that you knew, or did you just who did you stay with? Where did you live?
I have a distant family member who immigrated to Brooklyn a few years just before me.
Mm-hmm.
I think they paved the road. And I didn't know them very well. I met them twice in my life.
Wow.
And so they were very kind to open their couch and for me to land on their couch. And I was there through September 11 when the Twin Towers collapsed. And I was
goodness.
Observing the whole thing from Brooklyn, from the couch. Of my distant relatives.
When did you arrive? What was the date that you arrived here in America?
I arrived in June of 2001.
Oh, so you were here for a few months and you witnessed 9/11?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It was...
What was your impression?
I stayed in love with this country. I think for many people it was a shock.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I experienced a sense of gratitude because I was able to be here despite all the hardship and all pain.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow I was still grateful that I was here and I was not back home.
Okay. So now you're on your relative's couch for a few times. How long did you stay with them, and what was your next step on your journey?
Well, I moved out of the apartment pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened next is that I tried to find myself. I was a teacher. I finished a pedagogical university back home. So
Mm-hmm.
this is when I came here. I was trained to be a teacher of history, law, political sciences, and social sciences.
In Russia?
In Russia.
Wow. So you got quite an education.
Yes.
So is the education a lot better or more advanced in Russia than here? Or is it similar, better, different?
It is very rigorous, and I definitely received amazing education. It was very diverse, and my parents had very high values for education, and I had some really good teachers,
Beautiful.
especially my history teacher in high school. He was
Very good.
He was my role model.
So you said you came here and you started teaching. I mean,
I wasn't teaching. I did not have. I started waitressing. I was a
okay.
waitress.
That's fabulous. Well, that's usually how people start.
Right.
And so you had limit. So how long did you waitress? Give me the timeline.
So
take us on the timeline.
So when I came in, basically I spoke no language, no good language, and at the time I also had challenges because through the September 11 experience, there were a lot of the immigrational problems. During the Bush administration, the IRS at the time was completely backlogged with paperwork, so it was really challenging to get any permits. And so what happened for me is that I needed to find a job. So I worked for a furniture place, answering phone calls, barely speaking English. I worked in a restaurant, I babysat, I did all the random jobs.
Good for you that you found work. Good
yes,
for you.
Yes. And then eventually what happened is that I was really scared to teach, and I couldn't teach at the time in New York City. And so I had to find additional education for myself. And I started taking classes and
On?
psychology.
Okay.
Psychology, and then eventually ended up in the graduate program doing my PhD work. And that was in New York City. I was very fortunate with that, and I ended up doing my PhD in how to do research in the field of education and psychology.
Well, so you have your PhD, you're a psychologist. Does this mean you analyze people when you meet them? Do psychologists do that?
So I'm not a psychologist, but I'm a researcher.
Oh.
That's different because I basically help to understand how can we study people
Right.
in a way that we can maybe, talk to people, whether it's one single person or a group of people, and how we can do research so that we answer questions that we have about human behavior, how people think, how people make choices in life, how people deal with stress, how they deal with relationships.
And being here amongst American people in the United States, how do you think we as a civilization or as a nation deal with stress? That's a big question. Since you're a psychologist, PhD, and just studying people on some level.
I think, to be honest, this is why I moved away from the field of psychology and moved more into the healing realm, because for me, the answers that I found in psychology were not satisfying.
I see.
And even though I studied psychology and I spent probably more than a dozen years and still am doing some of the research, but I've also seen some of the holes and limitations that exist in research and traditional ways of viewing a person. It's, from my perspective, it's not holistic.
I see.
We're way more than our mind. We're
Yes.
way more than just our thoughts. And so for me, it's really interesting to see a person holistically. And this is how I went into the spiritual path as well, to have a more holistic perspective of a person.
So you're dealing with the mind, the body, and the soul.
And soul, yes.
Now, your website, which is very unusual, I've never seen this, is Mariya, as in Mariya, Shiyko, SHIYKO, .love.
Yes.
How did you get a .love for a website? I know you're a love magnet. I could see that.
Well, I should not take this as a credit for myself. I'll take it as a gift from the universe, but mostly a gift from a friend of mine who lives right now in Australia, who is a healer himself. So I think he saw my soul and he chose this extension for me. So it's much gratitude to him.
This is great. It's a great extension. So we've been talking about your passions. Now, is one of your passions being a healer as well?
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us about how you heal people. What is the modality? I'm very interested, and I know our viewers are very interested.
I do several things. One is that I'm trained in metaphysics and energy healing.
Oh.
And for me, I think I take energy as more diverse perspective of energy. Everything is energy. So I help people to heal on several levels. On the level of the body, and mostly it's connection between the mind and the body, how they think about themselves, how they view themselves, if they speak negatively to themselves, if they judge themselves.
Can you see that when you see somebody?
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking at me. What are you picking up?
Right away when I met you, I noticed that you're very intuitive.
I can be.
You're very intuitive, and you're also connected to your heart quite a bit, and creative.
I am creative. Yep, that's a true statement.
Because also the color that you're wearing is orange, which is color of creativity.
And healing.
And healing.
And healing, yeah.
And also you have both the right and the left side of the brain. So part of you're logical and you're organized.
Very organized.
And another part of you is just being able to be in the moment and be able to create in the moment, which is masculine and feminine as a balance.
You definitely have my number.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's pretty amazing. So, do you see energy around people? Do you read auras? Because because you said you're into energy. I'm not sure what you see. Because some people are they're fine. They have a certain vibration where they can see things.
I see vibration of the energy. So for some people, they see aura. For me, I feel vibration of a thought, and I feel vibration of a body. So for
Wow.
instance, if people are negative or if people are sick, I can feel the vibration. So it's almost, if you're a musician, you can hear the notes, whether they're high notes or low notes.
Right.
And you can feel something if it's out of tune on a piano, for instance.
Right, right.
And so for me, it's the same quality of feeling energetic vibrations that people carry with them.
Oh, this is fabulous.
And so I can tune in, and I need to, in many ways, I don't walk around feeling into every single person because that would be overwhelming.
It would be like a circuit overloading.
Exactly.
Like a fuse burning in your house.
Exactly.
All the lights going out.
Yes.
So you have to basically detach yourself.
Yes.
And when people come and see you, how you work with energy, but how do you actually heal them? I mean, do you talk? Do you have hands-on?
With 3 different modalities. One is energy healing, where they lay on a table. It's similar to a massage table. And then I use tuning forks, and I use my own sound of my voice.
Oh, beautiful.
And also hands to feel energy. And I help people through movement of the hands, as well as some tuning forks and tuning instruments to recalibrate their body. So this is the first method. The second method is helping people to connect to their intuition.
Beautiful.
And connect to their own sense of knowing. So to me, their healing is very much about self-empowerment. So when I work with my clients, it's very much not delegating the power to me, but helping them to connect to their source. So they're not walking around always asking for approval, always figuring out what is it that they should do with their lives, but they can tune in and trust themselves when they walk around. And the third modality is creativity. So with intuition, it's a collaboration between me and a client. So often it involves meditation, tuning in, question and answers, and also exercises that we do together. And finally, the last piece is intuitive creativity. So I work with a lot of creative people, writers, musicians, artists. And so I help them to trust themselves in the creative process, and also come from the place of not self-judgment, but mostly an intuitive way of exploring and expressing themselves through art. But it can also be scientists who also do creative processes.
You sound like a muse.
In
Have
many
you
ways.
been? Have people called you a muse? Because if you bring out the intuitive creativity in someone, because a lot of people have like writer's block, or they want to write a song, so you tap into that divine source.
Exactly.
So you're a muse.
In many ways, I am.
Oh my goodness, I'm with a muse. This is fabulous. This is magical. I love this. So give us some example. I know you can't mention people's names. I don't want you to, but give me something that's happened with one of your patients that you brought from point A to point Z.
I'm thinking about one specific woman that I've been working with for a while. I'm not going to, of course, share her name.
No, absolutely
a
not.
Beautiful, beautiful, absolutely beautiful soul. She has been on a journey. And what I'm seeing now, we've been working now for 8 months together. And she has both sides, the logical part, which is very good with computers and programming, and another part which is extremely intuitive and connected to nature. So for her, the challenge is how to combine the two and how to balance out the two and have an emotional sensitivity. So we've been working together, and where she's now compared to where she was when she came in,
Right.
she did not trust herself. She did not. She was very strongly stimulated by other people and was dealing with very harsh self-judgment. She wasn't able to function or get out of the house quite a bit. And so now she's traveling, she's writing poetry,
Wow.
she's taking beautiful photography, and she's creating her website, and we'll see where this goes next.
So she's very grateful for you for tapping into her creativity.
I think so.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So this is one example. Another example that I'm thinking about is another beautiful person. She's younger.
Mm-hmm.
She's very spiritually connected.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge that she has been going through is how to find her own voice
Mm-hmm.
in work and also relationships, relationship with men, relationship with herself, and with people around.
Mm-hmm.
She's extremely intuitive and hasn't been trusting the spiritual aspect, because sometimes spirituality is judged in our society. So it can be.
Yeah,
It can be.
But a lot of people are in tune with spirituality.
Yes. So we've been working with her again for several months, helping to bring the gifts that she does have so that she's able to look forward rather than backwards in her life. Rather than running away from something, she is able to look forward and take a step forward. So creating her life from the space of creating what she desires, creating forward rather than looking back and coming from the place of self-judgment.
So once a person comes to see you, do they have to continue to see you, or once you bring out what they need to be brought out into them, do you set them on their way and they're on their own?
It depends. Different people, it depends on a person. Sometimes it's a single session and we do check-ins. I usually have long-term relationships with clients.
Nice.
And I really enjoy hearing about what they do. I have clients who say, well, some of them are working on books. Some of them are working on writings and creating websites.
Right.
Some of them are dealing with maybe some physical issues and move through physical healing of the body. So for me, it's a relationship that really lasts. It might not be that I'm seeing them and we're not working together on a weekly basis, but we stay in touch.
So is that how you met Michael Coran? Because he's a writer?
No, we met, he came to one of my singing events.
You sing?
I do sing.
So is this another passion?
I dance, I sing, I paint, I do different things.
Okay. So, all right. So now we're going into other areas. This is great. So where do you sing? Where do you dance? And what do you paint? I mean, where can people see you singing?
Singing, I mostly do right now. I do for myself. I would love to do more in public.
Okay.
I do have classic education in music, but I also had to unlearn how to do that. And most of the things that I do now are intuitive singing, intuitive dancing, and intuitive painting. So I hold events, intuitive singing events.
Give me an idea. Do you just like break out in song?
So we start with a warm-up. We go through some of the classical warm-up.
Can you give us an idea?
Sure.
The warm-up? I mean,
So-
take it away.
Okay. So it may be. Da na 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 na, da na 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 na, da na na.
It's beautiful. Now, does everyone join you, or do you just put everyone into that relaxed state? Very hypnotic. So, how does that all play out? I mean, are they all doing this with you?
So go through warm-up, and then there are different kinds of activities. Sometimes we write a song together.
Oh, beautiful.
Sometimes we start with a song and we do variations on a song. There is also connections to the body, because sound and movement and body are strongly connected. I'm helping people often to connect to their body, and we move and sing together.
So you're basically moving stuck energy of people.
Exactly.
And giving them the opportunity to create.
Yes.
That's basically it.
Yes.
You know, they say when you create, you are a spark, you are as close as you can be to the universal energy. There is nothing better.
Yes. I agree with
So
you.
yeah, so it's a beautiful. So what you're doing is a beautiful thing. You're actually uplifting souls, right?
Yes.
Where do you dance?
I dance in life, metaphorically, but I also dance physically in many spaces. I dance at home. Part of my morning spiritual practice is movement.
Nice.
And dance,
Yeah.
and intuitive movement, and yoga. I belong to several communities in the Boston and Cambridge area that are...
Oh, I was going to ask you about community. Okay, we're jumping right into it. Okay.
So sometimes I participate, and sometimes I lead at those events as well.
Nice.
I also teach yoga play.
What is yoga play?
It is playing in your body, with your body.
Oh, I love this. So you're like kids in a sandbox.
Exactly.
Right? But there is
Exactly.
no sandbox.
The yoga mat and the community are the sandbox.
So how do people find out about where they can do this with you? If they want to join you, someone sees you on TV, they say, oh, I want to join Mariya with yoga play. How do they find you?
My website
Your website
is
okay.
the best source, because I update on different events, and also Facebook.
Okay.
So this is mostly how to find what I'm doing.
And do you have many people participating in yoga play?
I have people participating. I've been teaching yoga for 10 years now.
Wow.
But it's been changing over the years, and it's always changing in terms of how I understand yoga. It's becoming more spiritual for me these days.
So it has evolved.
It has evolved, and it also releases rigidity. It's more free.
Beautiful. And what studio do you practice at?
Right now, there is a studio in Medford. It's a beautiful space. It's called Borealis Yoga.
Oh, I like that.
It's
Borealis,
stands
isn't that one
for
of the...
Northern Stars.
Right.
Northern Star. So Borealis. There is another studio which is outside of Boston, and sometimes I travel and I give workshops outside of the Boston area, and sometimes I also offer them in my home space.
Nice. So this is what you're doing within the community. Is there anything else you're doing within the community? Like it could be time that you volunteer, or time that you're just giving back, or just things that you're doing within the community.
I often teach meditation, and I teach, sometimes I also offer healing sessions within the community, healing events of helping people to de-stress, because stress is such a pandemic nowadays. So I think I've done hundreds or thousands of hours in volunteer work in terms of offering it at the university.
Wow.
And just different centers, and also in Russia. When I traveled to Russia, I've offered a number of volunteer events as well.
You're a beautiful soul, very loving and giving. So if you have someone that has a stress problem, and they're always in their head, because people that are stressed live in their head, right?
Absolutely.
Because they don't, when you're creative, you're not in your head. How do you take someone out of their head? Is there like a quick fix that you can have someone do something? Can you share with us what that is?
3 things.
Go ahead.
So the first thing is unload your plate of the things you want to do. People overdo and overstuff themselves. If you can take away at least 3 things on a daily basis from your to-do list, that's number 1.
Oh, that's interesting. So remove 3 things.
Remove three things.
Because people, if they're stressed, they're overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Okay.
There is no other way to unload it. Remove it. Throw it away.
Okay.
Second one is play. And play is something that children do. It naturally connects us to spontaneity and relaxation.
Living in the moment.
Exactly.
They live in the moment. You see kids, they're like,
Yes.
they're running around and they're just having fun.
Yes.
They don't care what they're doing. They don't worry about what other people are thinking.
Yes.
They never worry about what other people are thinking.
Yes.
People that are worrying about what other people are thinking are living in their head.
Yes.
Who cares?
Yes.
You don't see kids saying, oh, I just tipped over a thing of milk and I'm not going to worry what that person thinks about me, because they don't even think about it. They tipped it over, they just move on.
Exactly.
So that's what you're talking about,
Yes.
living in the moment.
Yes.
Okay, and the third thing?
And I'll give a couple of examples in terms of play, because some people,
Please.
they don't even understand what play is
How
anymore.
do you? Okay, please do.
Maybe sometimes I need to decipher what it means. So take a bucket of flour and instead of baking, just make mess with flour. Maybe if you don't like being messy, clean your table, put flour, and just put water and start using your hands, anything that makes you feel tactile. Anything that you
Oh, I
can
like that.
really get messy and feel. It gets you out of your head and into the body, because it's really challenging for many people who do intellectual work to get into their physical space.
Right.
And that connects me to the point of number 3 is connect to your body.
Okay.
In any way that you can be tactile, move, massage, touch, therapeutic touch, healing touch, walk, roll on the grass, be on the floor, just be like a kid where you don't do necessarily even a gym workout, but you're free in your body, in your expression.
Right. I saw you doing that with Michael Coran when you were here.
Yes.
You guys were just playing.
Yes.
You had like an hour of playing. I says, they're like two kids in a sandbox. That's exactly what you're talking about. Like, there are no limits, no rules.
Exactly.
Let's just have fun.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Wow, this is great. I know lots of people that can do this. Someone
too.
came to visit me the other day, and this person walked in my house. I'm not going to say who it is. And this person says, I'm miserable. I'm not happy. And I went, okay, well, when you're home, do you watch TV? And they said yes. And I said, well, what kind of programs do you watch? Do you watch violence? He said, all the time. I said, you watch violence all the time? You're taking that into your subconscious.
Yeah.
And he says, and I said, do you watch the news? He says, I record the news.
Oh, boy.
I said, exactly. I said to him, do you realize all you're doing is feeding yourself negative stuff
Yes.
constantly? You live it, you breathe it, and then you take that into your subconscious. You probably even dream like that.
Yes.
So of course you're miserable.
It's you really pinpointed it. There is one of the rules: no TV 2 hours before bedtime.
Right.
And insomnia is such a huge problem nowadays. And what is conscious and what is unconscious, there is such a thin line between the two. And anything negative that we take in, especially before going to bed, it really distracts us from giving our body rest that is so important.
Now, what physically, I know that the pub, all the specialists, they tell you don't watch TV before you go to bed. What actually happens in the brain that, what's going on that we can't do that? I want to know the why.
Sure.
What's happened? Can you break it down?
I can.
Beautiful.
So what happens is, in general, as people, we're very empathetic. This is our nature.
Right.
We empathize with everything and anything. And so whenever we watch a TV, even though it's a box and it's a recorded thing, it's not happening in reality right in front of us, but our brain doesn't always differentiate between what is real and what is not real.
Oh.
And
you mean in the evening?
Actually, it's all the time.
Our brain doesn't differentiate between what is real and what isn't real?
It's when you're hearing a story, because everything is energy,
Right.
and many people are not aware of the kind of energy they take in. So even if you watch a lot of negative shows or movies or programs any time of the day, it doesn't matter when, unless you're very trained and very skilled, even if you are a meditation teacher that practiced for 20 years,
Right.
it still affects you. But you know how to cleanse yourself. That's the difference. And so what happens with the brain, there are two processes. The first process is at the base of our brain, there is a center that's called amygdala, and that's connected to the emotional response and also the fight or flight response.
Okay.
And so it's the primal, and sometimes it's also called the reptilian brain, which is connected to how we perceive the world as a dangerous place. So whenever we get into the space in our mind that the world is a dangerous place, which is that part of the brain being activated, our body goes into the automatic, I need to protect myself response, which is something which is known in the sciences as the sympathetic nervous system, or the stress response. So what happens, it's usually an example is a tiger situation when you see a tiger and you need to run away. But in this case, there is no tiger. It's an imaginary situation with violence. And so, but our body, we're complex. Our body doesn't differentiate between that. And so it releases cortisol, it releases all the stress hormones that influence our digestion, reproduction, heart rate, cholesterol, anything that has to do with physical and mental health, and depression as well, anxiety.
So this could be a reason why many people are depressed, because what they're taking in. You just blew my mind when you just said we cannot differentiate between what is real and what is not real. So you have these situations, and you hear about it on the news all the time, that these people go out and they shoot or they kill, and I'm saying, how can they do this? But they see it, it's so common on TV, I don't think that they can differentiate. This is an example of what you're talking about. What is real and what's not real?
There is a lot of pain in the world in which we live, and I think that this is part of the educational and healing system, which is not only done on the individual level, but mostly done on the universal level in the context of community, organizations, political events, social events and structures, infrastructures, organizations. So it's not, while I work with individuals, but if I were to look in the future, I really would love to work with organizations, maybe adopting some of these healing modalities in their practices, so there is a conducive environment for promoting creativity in educational establishments and also organizations.
If you work with people, let's say, in an established organization, and you have some people that are really broken, they've had a very difficult life, and they're stuck, are you able to work with every single person to release them so that they can get out of the funk that they're in, and that they can learn to live in the moment, be creative, unleash all that craziness, and become like centered, normalized, balanced on some sort?
So I think that several parts to this question. One, it's always person's will. It's never my will. It's the person's will.
So they have got they have to want
exactly.
it, or desire it.
Yes, they need to have a sense that maybe I need it, or I want it, or maybe I'm tired of the life that I've had up to now. Because it's impossible to change someone if there is no inspiration coming from within.
Right. So you can't even tap into that unless they want to change.
There is globally, yes. The simplest answer is yes, and I think that there are many people on this planet who have gone through the transition of having one lifestyle and then being sick and tired with that mindset and changing.
Right.
And I think the more transitions like that do happen, it inspires other people to do the same. They begin to question themselves more.
Right. Well, I know that a person really can change if they have fallen so low that really, like, they just can't take anymore. There's so many questions I have. I don't even know where to begin. Okay, so I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit here.
Okay.
We're going to talk about, so it's the PACE, the passions, the achievements, the community, and your endeavors, your future goals. What are some of your achievements? Did we talk about that already?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think we did. We kind of jumped from the passions, talked about community, your achievements.
So in terms of achievements, there are the ones that I personally value, and maybe there are some that society values. In terms of, let me start with what I value. So
It's beautiful. It's a perfect place to start.
So what I value is how much love I have in my daily life, and how much I'm able to wake up and just be more in connection with myself, with my heart, and not go to bed or not live a day where I feel resentful towards myself or I feel guilty of something. So it's really being in alignment with myself.
You're kind to yourself.
I'm very kind to myself.
Right.
I'm very
Right.
kind to myself.
And that's important that people love themselves. Because if you don't love yourself, you're certainly not going to love anyone else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So achievements. So you are basically, you're a love bug. You're a love magnet.
So in that way, for me, that is probably the biggest achievement in my personal life in terms of what I value, because I've been on the other side of it, where I have been extremely harsh towards myself. And so for me, how much I progress in self-kindness, self-love, but it's also, I also have very strict alignment. It's not, there is a lot of forgiveness, but there is very high morale as well. So they go hand in hand together.
I love that. Forgiveness of oneself, because a lot of people, especially empaths, they take on a lot and they don't forgive themselves. I learned something interesting. I forget I was listening to Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Have you ever heard that? Oh my God, it's the audio is unbelievable. And basically what I learned was with the monks, they were able to forgive people of some very harsh things. But what ended up happening was they took on the negativity because they just like let it go. Like, let's say someone murdered someone and they'll say, well, I forgive you. But it was such an extreme. It was so extreme. And this isn't the exact thing that happened, but they basically took on a lot of bad stuff. And they started to create all these illnesses within themselves. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't forgive other people, but you shouldn't take on the karma of someone else when they, in fact, have to work out their own karma.
Yes.
And I think it's good to be kind and loving to people, but if a person committed a certain act, then they have a certain responsibility to do whatever they have to do to make it right. It shouldn't be a monk that takes on the energy and just kind of lets the person off, because the monk takes on the energy and the person walks scot-free. That is not the way life, that's throwing life out of balance. So you as a healer, I'm sure you don't take on the energy. You are detached because you don't want to take on all this karma. You wouldn't be a good healer if you did take on the energy. You don't want to do that. You want to help them to figure out how to stay balanced and get better and to create and live in the moment. But does that make sense when I talk about, because there are a lot of people, especially women, they take on like a lot of stuff and everyone gets away scot-free and the woman's like carrying, you see some woman walking around and the husband looks young and vibrant and the woman looks beat up. And the reason why she looks beat up is because she's taken on all his crap or the crap of the world or whatever. You see it all the time, am I right?
Sometimes it does happen. I think you've asked such a complex question. I could probably go for hours answering it.
Yeah. Believe it or not, we only have like about 10 minutes.
Okay.
If I'm correct, is that right? We have about 10 minutes? We haven't even like...
We haven't even started.
No, we haven't even
just
begun.
started.
I know, exactly.
But I think just to keep it simple, there are different kinds of relationships. Being on a spiritual path and having gone through the spiritual training and the metaphysical training in a spiritual school and university, things are not quite as they appear to be. You know, some things like we choose certain things to work through them in life. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's been sometimes very challenging to be a healer and just a person, a sensitive person, because I do feel energy. And so I needed to learn what you're describing of not let the negativity in because it is paralyzing.
Correct. Right. And I know what that's about too.
I imagine. I imagine you do.
I'm gonna be 65, so I have a few more years on you, and we just go through. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the experiences. They haven't all been pleasant.
Yes.
People look at me and say, "Oh, you're so happy." I said, "You don't have.
You have no idea."
Yeah, you have no
idea.
Clue. Yeah, I have a lot of battle scars, but it's all good.
I imagine.
It's good. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because I've turned the lemons into lemonade.
So you are an alchemist, because that's what alchemy is going through shit,
right,
and coming out on the other side.
A lot of caca.
You love caca.
I've stepped in a lot of caca.
Yes.
My mother used to say, you've really had a hard life, but you always bounce back. And I say that's because I have God in my life.
Yes. Yes.
And I got to tell you, if I didn't have that in my world, I would be nothing. I would just be a person inside of I wouldn't be here talking to you. Mm-hmm. I would not be here. But I am here.
I can feel it.
But we're going to explore your dreams, your endeavors, your dreams, where you see yourself going. Because I know this could take hours, but.
So let me start with the immediate future and then maybe share some things that are a little bit crazy.
Oh, I like crazy. Crazy's good.
So the immediate dream for me is to publish a book. Nice. I've been working on it for a few years now, and it's a process. It's an inner process and an outer process. So I would be very grateful when I see it out.
Beautiful.
So that's number one.
Nice.
Number two, I would really love to see self-love practices and self-compassion practices, connecting to the body practices, being more used in educational establishments, so that the guilt and the shame and the judgment that we do have in educational systems is released, and the stress and pressure that teachers, students, educators put in that context, I would really love it to soften so that we can be more creative.
And where would you like this when you say in the education? Will this start with children? I mean, really young children, because isn't that when they're like molded in a good way?
Yes. So from the childhood and also continuing more into higher education as well.
Beautiful.
I personally am more familiar with higher education, given that I've been working in higher education for the last 10 years. I know that it needs to happen in so many environments. And so given how much pressure there is in achievement and stress and how much people are in their head, I think we need to move towards being more balanced as human beings. And anything that I can add in terms of public speaking, creating programs, working with educators and institutional educators to find the balance between right and left brain and also spiritual and human and bringing that love into education, it would be very fulfilling for me.
We definitely need to put what you're teaching in the school system. I think education, as we see it in the school system, yeah, it's important to learn. Math is huge. I mean, we definitely need math. We definitely need science. And history is important. I mean, all the subjects are important because there's something to learn, but more common sense about how to live in the real world.
Yes.
I think we lack that in us, in our education system.
I agree with you.
I mean, I went to a parochial school, and the nuns, they were brutal.
Wow.
They used to whack me on the hand.
Wow.
Thank God I was a rebel, and I used to laugh at them. Okay, because that was just unkind.
Wow.
Because I wasn't like my sister. I was louder than my sister. You're so noisy.
You were beautiful.
And I would get punished
You
for
were
being...
beautiful self.
I mean, not all the teachers were like that. There was one nun that when I was in the 4th grade, thank you, she pulled me aside and she said to me, "You are very, very special. You are very special." And there were certain things that were said to me that I held on to, and I forgot about being whacked around. So, Mariya, we have like 3 minutes left. I want you to leave our viewers, our listeners, with something profound. It's all yours. Take it away. Mariya Shiyko .love.
So on the way here, I was driving in a car that has no heat. And we're in Boston, and it's 0-degree cold. So I was driving here and was shivering a bit. And one of my favorite songs was playing. And the song goes like this. We are just visitors on this planet. And the way we touch this planet needs so much care, gentleness, and love. And we're not here, we're not the owners of the planet. We're not the ones who are owning the planet. But we're the ones who can only love ourselves. And through this journey of self-love, we can engage in a relationship with another human being, with nature, with plants, with animals, with our creative products, with books we're writing, with paintings that we're making. So remembering that we're visitors and remembering our eternal nature, but also transient nature, and also that the print, it's not the money in the bank account, it's not the number of the degrees you collect and the number of publications you make, but really the print that we leave is how much we love. And it starts with ourselves, and that it leaves a print on another human being.
Wow. Well, Mariya, you are love. And you have been such a delight. You just glow. You're like, there's all this radiance,
Thank you.
Just emanates from you. It's just beautiful. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here. You're such a joy. And I hope we could do this again.
Me too.
Right?
We
could do this again.
Appreciate it. Very grateful for you.
Thank you, Mariya. Thank you. Thank you to our audience. Have a good night now. Bye-bye for now.